So I know we typically don't do videos like this. Typically I make videos on Lego. But today I want to try something a little bit different and talk about a show I've been watching for a little while, WandaVision. And I'm going to try and do this video a little bit differently. It's going to be a lot less scripted and a lot of me just telling my opinions and giving my thoughts on this show. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. I'll try and put some pictures up and stuff like that in the background so it doesn't get too boring to watch visually, but it's mainly just going to be me talking, so I hope it's not too bad. Also, I'm going to try and do this video in two parts. The first little bit is going to be non-spoilery, so for anybody who hasn't seen the show, don't worry, I won't be spoiling anything to do with the plot, and I'll try and keep it as light as I possibly can, just giving my thoughts. And then after that, we can go completely into all the details and all the mess and everything that happens in the show. But yeah, I'll let you guys know when that happens. I'll leave a timestamp probably in the description and on the video so you know where to jump to for the spoiler part of this video. Anyways, I'm sure you guys have all heard about this WandaVision, the new series on Disney Plus. It just came to an end. It was a very, very emotional, sad end, but I still liked it a lot. I want to start off by saying I think it's a really good show. If I had to give it a number, I'd give it a ranking of like an 8 out of 10. And if you're a fan of the MCU, then I'd highly recommend watching it because it's one of the most unique things to come out of the MCU in a very long time. The last time we got something this unique was probably Guardians of the Galaxy, but seriously, there just aren't that many TV shows out there like this one, so I definitely recommend watching it. Even if you're not that big of a fan of superheroes in general, I still think it's a bigger TV show than that. It's a much deeper story about grief and coming to terms with losing a loved one, so I'd highly, highly recommend it, whether you are a fan of Marvel or not. The way the story is told through different decades of sitcoms is very jarring at first. I mean, you're pretty much going to be watching a black and white 60s sitcom for a bit. And I know that sounds super weird, but trust me, anybody who's seen it, they know it all works out perfectly in the end. I did hear about people skipping through those first two episodes because it was in black and white, and I guess that was a little bit too much for them to handle. Honestly, at first, I was very skeptical about this whole format, putting the MCU into a TV series. I know we've seen it done with Star Wars and The Mandalorian and like the Clone Wars, and that worked really well with those, but I just wasn't sure how the MCU would adapt to this new format. But honestly, I think I might even like it a little bit more than the movies. I mean, we get to spend so much time with each of these characters. I mean, just take Wanda and Vision, for example. They were a pretty interesting couple throughout the movies, and people were pretty invested in their story already, but we just didn't get to see them all that much in the movie since there's just so many different characters throughout Infinity War, Civil War, and Age of Ultron. You just don't get to spend that much time with these characters. So having a series like this, it fleshes out the characters just a lot more, and I think I honestly kind of prefer it to the movies a little bit. I generally think one of the best parts of the MCU is theorizing and just hyping up the movies and trying to guess what's going to happen next. That's just a really fun thing to do for most of the fans like me. So getting episodes on a weekly basis, it really made it fun to just theorize with the community over the internet and everything like that. There was so many crazy, wild theories that came out. Most of them didn't end up becoming true, but that's okay. It was still really fun to just theorize. And yeah, overall, I was kind of shocked by this. I was originally going into this show with pretty low expectations. I didn't think it was going to be that good. But honestly, it kind of surprised me with how good it was. It was just very unique, and the whole sitcom thing just worked beautifully. So overall, it was a great show, but I think that's all I can say without going to spoilers. So I think I'm going to call it right now. So if you guys haven't seen the show, that's going to do it for my non-spoilery section of this thoughts video, I guess. Everything from here on out is going to have spoilers, so there's your warning. So first of all, I think I already mentioned this, but the whole sitcom thing, the way they were able to connect that to Wanda's upbringing and how she used to watch these sitcoms as a kid in Sokovia, that was just beautifully done. It kind of justified the entire concept of this show. I think originally they wanted to do this whole sitcom thing, and they probably attached it back to her story. But I think it was beautifully done, and they handled it very well. When I was watching that scene of her backstory originally, part of me wanted to see Michael Fassbender show up as her father, as Magneto from the X-Men universe, because I'm a big fan of the X-Men universe, actually. But it was a little bit disappointing to not see that, but I think that was a little bit of a reach. I don't think the MCU would tie that heavily into Fox. And we'll discuss the whole Quicksilver showing up in this show in a little bit, but I want to start off with Wanda first, because her character was just so well done in this show. I know the show is called WandaVision, but this entire show is really more hers than it is Vision's. Vision's more like a side character throughout this whole thing. And I think the overall story arc she had of coming to grips with Vision's death was so well handled. Seeing those flashbacks in Infinity War and just how she had to kill him essentially to save the universe, it was just very well handled. The show didn't really rely on action or anything like that too much. All the amazing moments from this show, at least my favorite moments, were just emotional moments between Wanda and Vision and her kids and everything like that. It all kind of centered around Wanda, obviously, but it was not a lot of fighting, not a lot of action, which we typically don't see in MCU stuff. But overall, I just really liked the route they went with her character. I'm glad they decided to do that arc of her coming to terms with Vision's death instead of her trying to save him the entire time. Although I know he pretty much will be coming back, I'm assuming, with that white Vision. But nonetheless, I'm glad she got to say goodbye and kind of see his death again. I think that was just perfect. I mean, I love Vision, don't get me wrong. I really want to see him alive at the end of this show, which I think he pretty much is through the white Vision. But her character, Wanda's character, just really needed Vision to die. So I'm glad they actually went ahead and pulled the trigger on that and actually showed him die. Probably not for the last time, he's going to be coming back for sure, but it was still a very impactful moment. Also, I gotta say, Elizabeth Olsen really stepped up as Wanda and really got to flex her acting muscles in this show. She doesn't get too much screen time in the rest of the MCU, so it was really nice to let her just go off and do all those crazy emotional scenes and everything like that. And yeah, another cool thing that I liked was how they gave her kids. I think that was a really cool thing to make Wanda a mother. It's kind of a weird thing that we don't see with superheroes too often. I mean, obviously, for a superhero to have children would kind of tie them down in terms of their story. So, like, we typically don't see superheroes in the MCU who are parents or anything like that. But in this, we got to see Wanda have kids and still do a bunch of badass stuff. So that was pretty awesome. We don't really get to see that too often with superheroes in general. Another cool character that was introduced in this show, well, not really introduced in this because I guess we technically saw her in Captain Marvel 1 as a little kid, was Monica. I was very surprised by her character. She was really well done. She didn't overstay her welcome too much, and she didn't really overpower the show with a bunch of powers and introducing her character too much. We got to see a little bit of what her powers can do in the finale there. But I'm glad they didn't really show off her complete abilities and everything like that, because I think it would have overshadowed from the general story a little bit. But it was a nice little tease, and I can't wait to see what she ends up doing in Captain Marvel 2. Part of me really wants to see her fight Captain Marvel, because I know Captain Marvel is really overpowered, and I know in the comics, Monica Rambeau is also really overpowered. So it would be really cool to see them go head to head, and it seems like from that little bit of dialogue we got, I think in like episode 5 or something like that, that Monica doesn't have the greatest ties with Captain Marvel. It seems like there's a little bit of beef there, but who knows? I'd like to see them just go at it. I think that'd be a really cool fight. One of the most important things to come out of Monica's character, though, was seeing what happened to characters after the blip. I know in Far From Home, they kind of show it, but they play it off as a little bit of a joke, you know, like the kids just show up in the gymnasium and everything like that. But in this, we got to see just how jarring and chaotic it would be if everyone just disappeared, or if half the population disappeared for 5 years and then just magically showed up again. It would be complete anarchy and chaos, and we really got to see it in that hospital scene there. And that's just something that the MCU hasn't really shown too much of, so I'm glad they got to show that one scene as well. I know these two are not original characters to this show, we got to see them before in the MCU, but Jimmy Woo and Darcy were really awesome in this show. They were pretty much comedic relief, to be honest, but they honestly grounded the show and quite literally brought it back to reality when the show and when Wanda was getting a little bit outlandish. Like every time the 60s and like the 70s sitcom thing was getting a little bit too much, it just panned back out into the 16:9 aspect ratio and see Darcy and Jimmy doing their thing. It just brought everything back to reality and kind of grounded the show a little bit. So I thought that was pretty vital, and I think they handled that pretty well. One thing I'm going to be honest, I didn't like all that much was Hayward. I really thought his character was going to be someone really important. I know me and a lot of other people were theorizing he was going to be like Ultron or like Mephisto or all these other crazy characters were going to show up in this show somehow, and a lot of people tied that through Hayward. But honestly, at the end, his payoff, he kind of just seemed like a typical bad guy that we see in a lot of other films and stuff. His motivations were never really completely realized. I mean, maybe we'll see him again at some point and they'll kind of flesh that out a little bit, but for now, he's kind of just that faceless bad guy, right? He's just the typical, you know, oh, I'm Mr. Meanie or whatever, and kind of bossing everybody around and being a dick the whole time. So yeah, his character was a little bit disappointing in my opinion. I really wanted to be Ultron, man. I kind of want to see Ultron make a comeback. I think that would have been a really cool villain. Although it might have been a little bit too much for this show. I think this show is supposed to be a little bit more personal to Wanda, so that might have been a little bit too much. So yeah, all those theories about Ultron and Mephisto did turn out to be wrong, but who knows? Maybe we'll see them make a comeback at some point. Now, Hayward may have been a little bit disappointing, but he wasn't really the main villain of this show. The main villain was Agatha Harkness, also known as Agnes, played by the wonderful Kathryn Hahn. I remember when I first heard that Kathryn Hahn was cast in this show, I thought this entire thing was going to be kind of a comedy. And while her character was quite comedic in certain instances, especially at the beginning being the completely nosy neighbor and everything like that, but then she completely turns it around to play Agatha. So from an acting perspective, that was really well done. You know, she was playing like this comedic relief character and just turns into the villain and really switched very well. I thought it was very well handled. I thought she might have looked a little bit goofy as the main villain at first, but I was kind of sold on it. I think she did a good job. So she was not bad at all as Agatha Harkness. Although I gotta say her backstory thing kind of got a little bit too sci-fi and too superhero-ish for me. I don't know. I just found it weird, the whole witch thing. I just wasn't really sold on that too much. Maybe I'm completely on my own there. I don't know. I just thought it was a little bit weird. Just too much CGI and stuff going on. I kind of really wish they lit her on fire, although that might be a little bit too violent for a Disney Plus show. But the whole everyone firing beams at her and taking her powers, whatever, just really gave me a bunch of like Star Wars Episode 9, Palpatine sucking the Force out of Rey and Kylo vibes. Just felt very cheesy, so I didn't really like that. But the rest of her character and the way she kind of manipulates things throughout the show was really cool. Now, since she's this whole magical witch thing, I really thought, like, I theorized this like crazy, and I know a lot of other people did, that Doctor Strange was going to show up at the end of the show at some point in some way. Like the Ultron and Mephisto thing, I was a little bit kind of more of a guess, but Doctor Strange, I was like 100% sure he was going to have to show up in this show at some point. Because we all know this show is leading up to Doctor Strange 2, the Multiverse of Madness. And Scarlet Witch will be in that show as well, so I really thought he was going to make an appearance at some point. Especially since Paul Bettany said in an interview that in this show he got to work with an actor that he previously never got to work with and had a really good time doing that with, so I really thought that was going to be Benedict Cumberbatch, considering Vision and Doctor Strange never really interact throughout the entire MCU. So I don't know, I thought everything was kind of pointing to Doctor Strange showing up in the show, but I guess that didn't pan out, so that kind of sucks. I didn't really want him to like show up and save the day or anything like that. I think that would have completely stolen from Wanda's moment. But just kind of at the end or something like that, I don't know, maybe help her get her kids back or something, I'm not sure. I just wanted Benedict Cumberbatch to show up at some point. I don't know, man, I'm just super biased. I really like Doctor Strange. I just want to see him in this as well. But one thing that I'm actually like super disappointed about, I think it was kind of, they almost did us dirty completely, was with Quicksilver, or the X-Men Quicksilver, showing up in this show. Like, why did they do that? In hindsight, it just doesn't make any sense. I guess it was kind of just a big joke to cast Evan Peters as Pietro in this universe. But it just led to all these fans speculating and thinking that the X-Men universe is finally going to cross over with the MCU, considering that Disney does own both IPs. They can pretty much do that. I know it's very unrealistic to think they would do something like that, like something that big in this small scale of a show. But still, it was just they straight up took Quicksilver from the X-Men and put him in the MCU playing Quicksilver. And then all of that turns out to be completely nothing. It's all just a joke that he is a Ralph Boner, and it just gets a quick gag and a little bit of a laugh, and that's pretty much it. He doesn't really get to do anything else. And all those theories about the X-Men coming into the MCU are just completely destroyed. I still think it was really cool to see him. It's just the weekly format of this show really leads to a lot of theorizing, and then he shows up at the end of an episode, so we all think, hey, the X-Men are here now. Turns out to not be him. And it all kind of just turns out to be one big joke, which kind of sucks. I still think the X-Men will cross over eventually at some point, hopefully with the Multiverse of Madness. And now that we know that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man will be joining Tom Holland for Spider-Man 3, there's really no reason that like Michael Fassbender's Magneto could not just hop into the MCU and play like Wanda's long-lost dad or something. I don't know. I really like Magneto. He's like one of my favorite characters ever. So I really want to see him just jump into the MCU. And I gotta say, man, I don't know if it's a small little Easter egg or anything like that, but Wanda's final suit when she becomes a Scarlet Witch looks a lot like Magneto's suit in X-Men Apocalypse. I mean, you can't tell me there was like no influence there. They just look so alike. But who knows? Maybe I'm completely reaching there and just seeing what I want to see. I hope that's not the case though, and he actually ends up showing up. That'd be really cool. But yeah, overall, I was just really disappointed by the Quicksilver thing. I got super excited over it because I really liked Quicksilver in the X-Men universe. Like, I really preferred him to the MCU one. So if he jumped over, that would have been completely insane. Unfortunately, that's not the case, but what can you do, right? And like other than that, the ending of the entire show I think was a little bit predictable. I really liked the first 8 episodes a lot more than the climax, the ending. I thought it got a little bit just Marvel-esque with like shooting lasers at each other and stuff like that. It got a little bit too outlandish for me, considering the show was pretty grounded the entire time. There wasn't too much action going on, and the end was just this big action scene. And I don't think the action scenes were handled all that well. I don't know if like the choreography team or something like that, or the visual effects team are even the same as the ones that do the movies. It just, something looked a little bit off, you know. It just didn't feel like the quality that we see in like Infinity War or Endgame, considering, I mean, obviously those are much bigger movies with way bigger budget and everything, but this show was not cheap at all, guys. It was like $225 million. So all things considered, I still thought the fight scenes were going to be a little bit better, but it doesn't really matter, right? The show is more about Wanda and her whole personal arc, so they still did that very well. I did like the fact that she had to say bye to her kids. That was completely tragic, and they kind of just said good night and locked the doors and or closed the door and everything like that. I think that was very well done. It was really sad. Vision's death was also very sad, although I feel like all of us know that Vision's showing up again at some point, and I think her kids will too. I'm really not sold on them being dead. I think that's way too dark for Disney to do, just kill off children like that. I don't think they do that. So they'll definitely probably be back, but it was still a sad moment, and I think it completed Wanda's story arc throughout this whole show and wrapped it up just beautifully. So it was a good ending, not a amazing ending. I don't know what I was expecting. I thought maybe like one more plot twist or something big would happen. It was a little bit predictable in my opinion. I still definitely liked it though. Like I said earlier, 8 out of 10. This is a great show. Definitely recommend. One thing I am kind of concerned about, though, is can this show really have a season 2? Like, think about it. Even if they did want to do a second season on, like, Wanda and Vision and their whole relationship and everything, it wouldn't have the same style, or it'd be really hard to implement the whole going through the decades of the sitcom thing. That was kind of what made this show very unique, and I just don't see how you could do that again without completely repeating parts of this season's story with like the whole false reality Westview living in a bubble scenario. So who knows? I really would love to see a season 2. I mean, this one really did surprise me. I was one of those people that completely judged this show by its cover. I mean, I thought it was going to kind of suck, to be honest. I thought this was going to be MCU's first miss, but I was completely wrong. I don't know why I ever doubted them. I mean, the MCU doesn't really seem to make anything that's bad at all, so I'm not sure really why I doubted them. And honestly, that really changes my opinion for Falcon and Winter Soldier. I was honestly more excited for that show than WandaVision, but now looking at it, I don't see how that show can top this. But who knows, right? I mean, I was completely wrong about WandaVision. I could be completely wrong about Falcon and Winter Soldier as well. My first impressions of that show were that it looks a little bit basic. I'm kind of just thinking it's going to end up being a little bit like Captain America Winter Soldier with like a buddy cop vibe to it a little bit. But that's what I was kind of getting from the trailers and everything. But then again, just like WandaVision, I could be completely wrong. The one that I do think will be a lot more unique and kind of push the superhero genre forward a lot more is Loki. That one seems to be a lot more strange and trippy and just different from what we've seen before. But who knows, we'll just have to see. Hopefully they all turn out being really good, just like WandaVision was. And yeah, those are pretty much just my overall thoughts on this show. I kind of just watched the series finale like an hour ago and they started recording this just because I wanted to talk about it. So let me know if you guys have finished, or are currently finishing, or plan to start WandaVision anytime soon, what your thoughts on this show are, and what you'd like to see next for this universe. Those 2 after credit scenes did end up teasing quite a bit of stuff with Captain Marvel 2 and Doctor Strange 2, so a lot to look forward to. But let me know what you guys think. I know this video is completely different than what you guys are used to, but I hope you did enjoy it. But that will pretty much do it for me. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.